The door clicks shut. The car engine turns off. The phone call ends. And in the sudden, deafening silence that follows, you are left alone. But you aren't at peace, are you? Your heart is still beating just a little too fast. There's a buzzing under your skin, a nervous, restless energy that won't settle. Your mind, instead of quieting, goes into overdrive. It begins replaying the conversation, every word, every pause, every subtle shift in tone. You dissect their phrases, searching for the hidden meaning, the veiled insult, the barb wrapped in a compliment that you know was there, even if you couldn't quite catch it in the moment. You feel a strange mix of confusion and exhaustion. It's a feeling of being mentally bruised, as if you've just gone 10 rounds in a boxing match you didn't even know you were in. You might feel a surge of anger, followed by a wave of guilt. Why did I let them say that? Why didn't I speak up? Or maybe they were right. Am I being too sensitive? Am I the one who's causing the problem? That feeling, that swirling vortex of self-doubt, frustration, and sheer mental fatigue, that is the aftermath of an invisible battle. If this sounds familiar, if you have ever walked away from an interaction feeling smaller, drained, and expertly outmaneuvered, then I need you to listen very closely. What you just experienced wasn't just a difficult conversation. It was a match. It was a strategic series of moves, played on a board you couldn't see, governed by rules you were never taught. Welcome to the world of mental chess. For a long time, you have been a pawn in someone else's game. You entered these interactions believing you were having a discussion, a negotiation, or simply a conversation between two people who care for each other. You brought your empathy, your reason, your desire for harmony and connection to the table. And your opponent, the toxic person in your life, skillfully used every single one of those beautiful qualities against you. They used your empathy to make you feel guilty. They used your reason to twist you in logical knots. They used your desire for peace to make you concede ground again and again until you found yourself standing on a tiny square of your own self-worth, wondering how you got there. You've been losing this game not because you are weak, not because you are unintelligent, and certainly not because you are too sensitive. You've been losing for one simple reason. You didn't know you were playing. You thought you were connecting, but they were competing. You were trying to build a bridge while they were planning an ambush. This audiobook is going to change that forever. We are going to pull back the curtain on this invisible battlefield. But more than that, we are going to change your position on the board. The days of being a pawn are over. By the time you finish this journey, you will be the Grand Master. Now, before we go any further, I need to explain why these encounters leave you feeling so physically and mentally shattered. This isn't just a matter of feelings or opinions. This is a matter of biology. What's happening to you is a deeply ingrained physiological event, and understanding it is the first step toward taking your power back. Your brain is the most sophisticated survival machine on the planet. It's the product of millions of years of evolution, fine-tuned for one primary purpose: to keep you alive. To do this, it's running an operating system that was designed for a world filled with immediate physical threats. Think of it like this. You have a brand new top-of-the-line computer, but it's running ancient software. Software designed to deal with saber-toothed tigers and rival tribes, not a passive-aggressive email from your boss or a gaslighting comment from a family member. Deep inside your brain, in a region called the temporal lobe, is a small, almond-shaped cluster of neurons called the amygdala. The amygdala is your brain's smoke detector. It is the heart of your threat detection system. It doesn't think, it doesn't reason, it just reacts. Its job is to constantly scan your environment, everything you see, hear, and experience, and scream "danger" at the first sign of a potential threat. When our ancestors were on the savannah, this system was a lifesaver. A rustle in the grass? The amygdala screams, tiger. A shadow from above? Eagle. In an instant, without any conscious thought, it triggers a massive chemical cascade throughout your body. It floods your system with cortisol, the stress hormone, and adrenaline, the action hormone. This is the famous fight or flight response. Your heart pounds to pump blood to your muscles. Your breathing becomes shallow and rapid to pull in more oxygen. Your pupils dilate. All of your energy is diverted away from non-essential functions like digestion or complex reasoning and redirected toward one of two goals: fight the threat or run from it. And here is the most crucial part of this process. When your amygdala hijacks your system, it effectively shuts down the most evolved part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the CEO of your brain. It's the part right behind your forehead that handles logic, rational thought, planning, and emotional regulation. It's the calm, wise grand master in your mind. But when the amygdala's alarm bells are ringing, it's like a fire alarm going off in the corporate headquarters. The CEO is immediately told to evacuate. There's no time for careful deliberation when a tiger is at the door. Your brain defaults to its most primitive, reactive programming. Now, let's bring this back to your modern life. You're in a conversation with a toxic individual. They don't lunge at you with claws and teeth. They use far more subtle weapons. They use a condescending tone. They use word salad, a confusing jumble of accusations and circular logic that leaves you dizzy. They subtly rewrite history, making you question your own memory, a tactic we will later identify as gaslighting. They deliver a cutting remark disguised as a joke. To your conscious, logical mind, your prefrontal cortex, this is just words. But to your amygdala, that ancient, paranoid smoke detector, these are all perceived as threats. A threat to your social standing, a threat to your sense of self, a threat to your safety within the tribe. And so, it does the only thing it knows how to do. It screams, "Danger!" And the hijack begins. Cortisol and adrenaline flood your system. Your heart rate climbs. You might feel a knot in your stomach or a tightness in your chest. And most importantly, your prefrontal cortex, your ability to think clearly, to access your vocabulary, to form a rational argument, goes offline. This is why you stumble over your words. This is why you can't think of the perfect comeback until 3 hours later when you're in the shower. It's not that you're not smart enough. It's that the part of your brain responsible for that kind of high-level thinking was temporarily shut down for emergency procedures. You were, quite literally, not thinking with your full brain. The ancient software was running the show, and it was preparing you to either fight a tiger or run from it, neither of which is a particularly useful response to a snide comment from your mother-in-law. The toxic person often intuitively knows this. They thrive on creating this reaction in you. Your emotional response is their victory. It's the validation they seek. It's the proof that they have power, that they can affect you, that they matter. When you get flustered, when you get angry, when you break down in tears of frustration, you have just moved your pawn exactly where they wanted it to go. For them, it's check. And the cost to you is enormous. A single encounter can leave you feeling depleted for days, your body struggling to clear the cortisol from your system. When these interactions happen regularly, you are living in a state of chronic stress. This isn't just about feeling bad. It's a physiological state with devastating long-term consequences. Chronic cortisol exposure is linked to anxiety, depression, digestive issues, weight gain, impaired memory, and a weakened immune system. The invisible battle has very real, very physical consequences. You are not just fighting for your peace of mind. You are fighting for your health. So here you are, trapped. You're hardwired with an ancient threat detection system that can be easily hijacked by modern psychological warfare. And direct confrontation, fighting back with angry words, only feeds the toxic person's need for drama and gives them more ammunition.
It's like trying to win a chess game by flipping the board over. It's messy, you don't win, and you're the one who has to clean it up. So, what do? You change the game. This is the promise of this audiobook. This is the core of mental chess. The only winning move is to stop playing their game altogether. Instead, you will learn to play a new one, a better one, a game that is played and won entirely inside your own mind before you ever say a word. Mental chess is not about learning witty comebacks. It's not about becoming cold or cruel. It's not about learning to manipulate the manipulator. It is the art of mastering your own internal state so completely that the toxic person's moves become irrelevant. It is the practice of achieving emotional immunity. Imagine this. You are in a conversation with them. They deliver their usual veiled insult, but this time, instead of feeling that familiar jolt of adrenaline, instead of your amygdala screaming danger, you feel nothing, a calm, a sense of detached observation. You see their move for what it is, a predictable pattern, a desperate attempt to get a reaction. You hear the words, but they don't penetrate your armor. They don't trigger the hijack. Your prefrontal cortex, your inner grandmaster, remains fully online, calm and in control. You are no longer a piece on the board. You are the player, observing the entire game with strategic clarity. From this place of power, your response, or your lack of response, is a conscious choice, not a triggered reaction. You might offer a simple non-committal, "I see." You might change the subject. You might simply nod and smile faintly. To them, your calm is baffling. They were expecting to see you flustered, to see that spark of hurt or anger in your eyes. They just moved their most powerful piece to capture your queen, and they find your queen was never there to begin with. It was an illusion. The real you was safe, watching from a distance, untouchable. This is not a fantasy. This is a skill, and it is based on one of the most hopeful discoveries in modern neuroscience: neuroplasticity. Your brain is not fixed. It is not rigid. It can be rewired. The neural pathways that currently lead from a manipulative comment directly to an amygdala hijack can be weakened, and new pathways that lead from that same comment to your calm, rational prefrontal cortex, can be built and strengthened. Every technique in this book, every mindset shift we explore, is a practical exercise in neuroplasticity. You will learn to be the architect of your own mind. We will start by mapping the board, identifying the toxic archetypes, the narcissistic king, the gaslighting bishop, the martyr pawn, so you can recognize their patterns and predict their moves before they even make them. We will deconstruct their playbook, tactic by tactic, from projection to word salad, demystifying their strategies until they lose all their power over you. Then we will turn inward. I will teach you the foundational moves of mental chess, the art of observation, the power of strategic disengagement, and the silent checkmate of becoming an utterly unsatisfying target for their drama. You will learn how to build unshakable internal boundaries, fortifying your sense of self until it is immune to their attacks. This journey will transform you. You will move from being a reactive target to a proactive protector of your own peace. The goal is not to defeat them. The goal is to make them irrelevant to your happiness and well-being. The ultimate victory in mental chess isn't hearing them say you win. It's the profound, unshakable silence in your own mind when their chaos can no longer touch you.
The board is set. The pieces are in place. But this time, it is your game to control. The first step to becoming the Grandmaster is to understand the terrain you're playing on. It's time to take a deeper look at the elegant, ancient, and incredibly powerful wiring of your own brain and understand exactly why you've been so vulnerable until now. Let's begin.
Why do their words cut so deep even when you know they're wrong? Think about that for a moment. You can be a logical, intelligent person. You can know with absolute certainty in your rational mind that the criticism being leveled at you is unfair, untrue, or a wild exaggeration. You can recognize the manipulation for what it is. And yet, the words land. They find a crack in your armor and seep into your system, souring your mood, hijacking your thoughts, and leaving a stain that can last for hours, sometimes days. Why is that? Why does a single barbed comment from a specific person have the power to erase 100 genuine compliments? Why do you find yourself replaying their negativity over and over while moments of praise and kindness seem to fade so quickly? If you have ever beaten yourself up over this, if you've ever thought, I should be stronger than this, or why do I let them get to me? I want you to take a deep breath and grant yourself a moment of grace. The reason you are so susceptible to these tactics is not a character flaw. It is not a failure of willpower. It is a feature of your design. You feel this way because your brain is operating exactly as it was programmed to. In this chapter, we are going to explore your brain's default settings. We're going to open up the user manual to that incredible, ancient software we talked about and understand the specific vulnerabilities that toxic people have become experts at exploiting. By understanding why their moves are so effective, you will take the first, most critical step toward rendering them powerless. This isn't about blame, it's about revealing the blueprint of your mind so that you can begin to consciously remodel it. Let's start with the first default setting, the one that explains why negativity seems to have such a powerful hold on you. It's a concept in neuroscience known as the negativity bias. Simply put, your brain is like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. Think about it. If you have a day with 10 positive events and 1 negative one, what do you lie in bed thinking about that night? What story do you tell your partner or your friend when they ask how your day was? For most of us, it's the one negative thing. That one frustrating email. That one rude driver. That one critical comment. It sticks. This isn't a pessimistic outlook. It's a survival mechanism. Our ancestors didn't survive by remembering all the beautiful non-poisonous flowers they saw on the savannah. They survived by having a vivid, unforgettable memory of the one plant that made them sick. They didn't survive by fondly recalling the thousands of times a stick on the ground was just a stick. They survived by having an immediate, powerful, and lasting reaction to the one time it turned out to be a snake. Survival depended on learning from dangerous and negative experiences quickly and intensely. Your brain, therefore, evolved to pay special attention to threats, insults, and dangers. The neural machinery that processes negative information is far more powerful and sensitive than the machinery that processes positive information. Bad news, criticism, and fear trigger a more significant surge of electrical activity in the brain than good news, compliments, and joy. Now, apply this ancient survival code to your modern life. A toxic person delivers one of their signature backhanded compliments. "That's a really great report you wrote. I'm surprised you managed to pull it off with everything else you have going on." Your prefrontal cortex, the logical CEO, hears the compliment. "Great report." But your amygdala, the hyper-vigilant smoke detector, hears the threat. "I'm surprised you managed it," which carries the subtext, "I expected you to fail." Because of the negativity bias, which of those two messages do you think your brain will grab onto and replay for the next 3 hours? Which part will feel more real? The negative part, every time. The toxic person doesn't even need to be overtly cruel. They just need to plant a tiny seed of negativity, and they can trust that your brain's own programming will water it, fertilize it, and let it grow until it overshadows everything else. When you understand this, you can stop blaming yourself for being too sensitive. You are not too sensitive. You are equipped with a highly effective threat detection system that is simply misinterpreting psychological barbs as survival-level threats. You are running ancient software on modern problems. Recognizing this bias is the first step. You can begin to consciously observe it in action, saying to yourself, there's my negativity bias again. It's latching on to that comment. That's just my brain doing its old survival dance. Now let's look at the second default setting, one that is often seen as your greatest strength, but is also one of your greatest vulnerability, your empathy. This is what I call the empathetic trap. Empathy is your ability to understand and share the feelings of another. It's the foundation of human connection, compassion, and kindness. In a healthy relationship, empathy is a superpower. It allows you to build bridges of understanding and support. It's a beautiful, essential part of who you are. But in the hands of a toxic person, your empathy becomes a weapon they use against you. Your brain is wired for connection. Specialized brain cells called mirror neurons fire not only when you perform an action, but also when you see someone else perform that same action. When you see someone smile with genuine joy, your mirror neurons fire and you feel a faint echo of that joy. When you see someone in pain, your brain simulates that pain, allowing you to feel with them. This is the biological basis of empathy. You are hardwired to feel what others feel. Toxic people, especially those with narcissistic or manipulative tendencies, learn to exploit this masterfully. They know that your natural inclination as an empathetic person is to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's to try and understand their perspective. It's to feel bad for them when they play the victim. When they tell you a sob story about their difficult past, your mirror neurons light up. You feel their pain, and that feeling motivates you to help them, to forgive them, to tolerate their bad behavior because they've been through so much. When they accuse you of hurting them, your empathetic brain immediately scans for the truth in their accusation. You think, did I hurt them? Could I have said that differently? You are so busy trying to understand their feelings that you completely dismiss your own. They use your empathy to create guilt. Guilt is one of their most powerful tools of control. They will subtly imply that their bad mood is your fault, that their unhappiness is a result of something you did or didn't do. An empathetic person's immediate response to seeing someone in pain is to try and fix it, especially if they think they might be the cause. So you apologize, you concede, you walk on eggshells to manage their emotions for them. You have just been caught in the empathetic trap. You are playing the game on their terms, trying to soothe an unsoothable person, all because your brain is naturally programmed to care. So you have a brain that's Velcro for their negativity and a heart that's wired to get caught in their emotional traps. But there is a third and perhaps most potent element at play. We touched on it in the last chapter, but now we need to examine it more closely. It's the intentional triggering of your amygdala hijack. As we discussed, the amygdala hijack is that physiological cascade of stress hormones that shuts down your rational brain and throws you into fight-or-flight mode. It's not a random event. In your interactions with a toxic individual, this hijack is often being triggered on purpose. Toxic people are masters of pattern recognition when it comes to human emotion. Consciously or not, they are experts at finding your specific emotional triggers. They learn what makes you feel insecure, what makes you feel guilty, what makes you angry. These are like little red buttons on your control panel, and over time, they learn exactly which buttons to press to get the reaction they want. The reaction they want is the hijack itself. Why? Because when your prefrontal cortex goes offline, you are no longer a strategic opponent. You are a bundle of raw, reactive emotion. You can't think clearly. You can't argue logically. You can't access the calm, centered part of yourself. In that state, you are easy to control. You are easy to defeat. Think of it this way. Your mind is a sophisticated aircraft. Your prefrontal cortex is the calm, experienced pilot, capable of navigating through any turbulence with skill and logic. The amygdala is a panicked passenger in the back. The toxic person's goal is to create so much psychological turbulence through subtle digs, accusations, or by bringing up past mistakes that the panicked passenger storms the cockpit and grabs the controls. With the amygdala at the helm, the plane goes into a nosedive of emotional reaction, and that is precisely where they want you.
They create this turbulence with uncanny precision. If they know you're sensitive about your work, they'll question your competence. If they know you feel guilty about not spending enough time with family, they'll make a passive-aggressive comment about how long it's been since you called. They poke and they prod, watching you, waiting for that flicker in your eyes that tells them they've hit a nerve. The moment you react, the moment your voice gets defensive or your eyes well up, they've won the round. They have successfully taken your pilot offline and put your panicked passenger in charge. So let's put these three pieces together. Here is the vicious cycle, the default setting that has been keeping you stuck. A toxic person makes a manipulative comment. Your negativity bias kicks in, causing your brain to latch on to the threatening part of the message and ignore any positive framing. This negative input is interpreted by your amygdala as a social or emotional threat, triggering the amygdala hijack. Stress hormones flood your system, shutting down your rational prefrontal cortex. At the same time, your empathetic programming makes you want to understand their feelings and question your own, creating confusion and self-doubt. You are now flustered, emotional, and unable to think clearly. Exactly the state the toxic person needs you to be in to maintain control. You walk away feeling defeated, exhausted, and blaming yourself for being weak. Do you see it now? It's not your fault. You have been playing a game that was rigged from the start by your own biology. You have been caught in a loop designed by millions of years of evolution. But here is the most important thing I will say in this entire audiobook. Your biology is not your destiny. Your default settings can be changed. This brings us to the most hopeful and empowering discovery in all of modern neuroscience: neuroplasticity. For centuries, we believed the adult brain was largely fixed. We thought that by the time you reached adulthood, the wiring was set, and you were more or less stuck with the brain you had. We now know that is completely, utterly false. Your brain is remarkably plastic or changeable. It is constantly remodeling itself in response to your thoughts, your experiences, and your actions. Think of the neural pathways in your brain as paths through a dense forest. The pathways that lead from a trigger to a reactive amygdala hijack are your current default paths. They are like deep, well-worn ruts in the ground. You've walked them so many times that your brain follows them automatically, without conscious thought. It's easy, it's familiar, it's the path of least resistance. Every time you react emotionally to a toxic person, you are walking that path again, carving the rut just a little bit deeper. Neuroplasticity means you can create new paths. The techniques you are going to learn in this book are acts of conscious path creation. When you practice observing your emotions instead of being overwhelmed by them, you are bushwhacking through the undergrowth, forging a new trail. The first few times, it feels difficult and unnatural. It takes effort and concentration. But if you walk that new path tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that, the undergrowth gets trampled down. A trail begins to form. Eventually, this new path, the path that leads from a trigger to your calm, observant prefrontal cortex, becomes clearer, wider, and easier to walk. At the same time, the old, reactive path, because you are no longer using it, begins to grow over. Nature reclaims it. After enough practice, the new path becomes your new default. It becomes the automatic response. This is not just a metaphor. This is physically what happens in your brain. You are building new synaptic connections. You are literally rewiring your mind. This is the key. This is how you upgrade your ancient software. You now understand the vulnerabilities in the default system: the negativity bias, the empathetic trap, and the amygdala hijack. You can stop blaming yourself for having these vulnerabilities and instead see them for what they are: outdated survival programs. Now, our work begins.
We will move from understanding the problem to actively creating the solution. We will turn from analyzing your own mind to analyzing your opponent. To win a game of chess, you must first understand how the different pieces move. In the next chapter, we will map out the board, identifying the key toxic archetypes and their predictable patterns of behavior. You are about to learn how to know their next move before they even make it. What if you could know their next move before they even make it? Imagine a grandmaster playing chess. They aren't just looking at the piece that moved last. They are looking at the entire board. They see the patterns. They understand the nature of each piece, how a bishop moves diagonally, how a rook moves in straight lines, how a knight moves in its unique L shape. Because they understand the fundamental nature of each piece, they can anticipate potential threats and opportunities several moves in advance. They are not simply reacting to the game, they are shaping it. This is the level of strategic clarity we are now going to cultivate. To outsmart your opponent, you must first understand them. Not to sympathize, not to excuse their behavior, but to recognize their patterns so thoroughly that their actions lose the power to surprise and destabilize you. When you are no longer surprised, you are no longer shocked. And when you are not shocked, your amygdala is far less likely to hijack your rational mind. In this chapter, we are going to map the toxic archetypes. We will define the key pieces on the board of mental chess. Now, a crucial disclaimer before we begin. This is not about armchair psychology or trying to diagnose anyone with a personality disorder. That is not our goal, and it is not our right. Our goal is far more practical. It is about pattern recognition for the purpose of self-protection. You are a scientist of your own experience, gathering data. We are simply giving names to the predictable patterns of behavior you have likely already observed, so you can stop taking them personally and start seeing them strategically. These archetypes can overlap, and one person might use moves from several different pieces depending on the situation. But by understanding the core motivation behind each one, you will equip yourself with the powerful gift of prediction. Let's look at the board. First, we have the most powerful and often most dangerous piece on the board, the narcissistic king or queen. The narcissistic king or queen dominates the center of the board, demanding that the entire game revolve around them. Their core driving motivation is an insatiable need for admiration and validation, what is often called narcissistic supply. Beneath a veneer of supreme confidence lies a deeply fragile and insecure ego. Their fundamental, unspoken fear is of being seen as ordinary, flawed, or insignificant. To mask this terror, they construct an elaborate false self, a grandiose persona of perfection and superiority, and their entire life is a performance designed to protect it. Their moves are all geared toward gaining this narcissistic supply. They will surround themselves with people who admire them, who act as their loyal subjects. They will constantly boast about their achievements, exaggerating their successes and taking credit for the work of others. A key move is to belittle and diminish those around them, especially those who threaten their sense of superiority. By making you feel smaller, they feel bigger. It is a zero-sum game for them. For them to win, you must lose. They lack true empathy. They may be able to perform a convincing imitation of it if it serves their purpose, but they are incapable of genuinely feeling with you. Your feelings, your needs, and your successes are at best irrelevant, and at worst, a direct threat to their dominance. If you share a personal achievement, the narcissistic king or queen will immediately pivot the conversation back to themselves. Either by one-upping your story, "That's great you ran a 5K, I actually ran a half marathon last month without even training for it," or by subtly diminishing it. "Oh, that's nice. Is that the company that's been having financial trouble?" The most dangerous move in their arsenal is what's known as narcissistic injury or narcissistic rage. This happens when their fragile ego is threatened. A piece of constructive criticism, a perceived slight, or you simply disagreeing with them can trigger a disproportionate and terrifying rage. This isn't normal anger. It's a vicious, vindictive attack designed to annihilate the threat. They will become cruel, unleash a torrent of insults, and use everything they know about you to inflict maximum pain. Playing against this piece is utterly draining. You feel less like a person and more like an accessory, a mirror whose only job is to reflect their magnificence. You find yourself walking on eggshells, constantly censoring yourself to avoid triggering their rage. Your life becomes a constant effort to manage their ego. But now that you understand their motivation, their moves become predictable. You can predict that they will make every situation about themselves. You can predict that they will not be a source of genuine support or celebration for your victories. And you can predict that any form of criticism, no matter how gently delivered, will be met with disproportionate anger. Knowing this, you can stop hoping they will change and start planning your defense.
Next, let us examine a piece that is perhaps the most confusing on the board: the gaslighting bishop. The bishop moves diagonally in ways that are subtle, indirect, and hard to track. Its power lies not in overt aggression, but in covert reality twisting. The core motivation of the gaslighting bishop is to maintain control by systematically eroding your confidence in your own perceptions, your memory, and your sanity. Their fundamental fear is being held accountable for their behavior. If they can convince you that you are the one who is unstable, forgetful, or crazy, then they never have to face the truth about themselves. Their primary move is denial. They will say something hurtful or make a promise they don't keep, and when you bring it up later, they will flatly deny it ever happened. "I never said that. You're making things up again." They will say it with such conviction that you, an empathetic person who gives others the benefit of the doubt, will begin to question your own memory. Another classic move is to question your emotional state. You express a valid feeling of being hurt by their actions, and they respond with, "You're being way too sensitive," or "Why do you always have to be so dramatic?" This reframes the issue from their bad behavior to your supposed overreaction. Over time, you learn to stop trusting your own feelings, believing that you are in fact too sensitive. The gaslighting bishop is a master of projection, accusing you of the very things they are doing. An unfaithful partner might constantly accuse you of flirting. A liar might call you untrustworthy. This is a strategic move to keep you on the defensive, so busy defending yourself against false accusations that you never have a chance to question their own suspicious behavior. Playing against this piece is profoundly disorienting. It creates a state of cognitive dissonance, the mental stress of holding two contradictory beliefs at once. I know what I saw, and this person I trust is telling me I didn't see it. This mental fog is their goal. It makes you dependent on them to define your reality. You feel anxious, confused, and increasingly isolated as you begin to believe you can no longer trust your own mind. But once you identify the pattern, you can break the spell. You can predict that when you confront them with facts, they will deny, deflect, and distort. You can anticipate that they will try to use your emotions as evidence of your instability. This knowledge is your anchor. It allows you to hold on to your own reality, to trust your own perceptions, even when they are doing everything in their power to convince you that you're lost at sea. Now for a seemingly weaker yet incredibly powerful piece, the martyr pawn. The pawn may seem humble, but its power is immense and built on a foundation of guilt. The core motivation of the martyr pawn is to control others through pity, obligation, and weaponized self-sacrifice. Their fundamental fear is of being abandoned or feeling powerless. By casting themselves as the perpetual victim, the one who always suffers, they manipulate the empathetic people around them into becoming their caretakers.
The martyr's signature move is the unsolicited favor followed by the unspoken expectation of repayment. They will insist on doing something for you that you didn't ask for, often going to great, dramatic lengths to do it, and then hold it over your head indefinitely. They create a debt you can never repay. They are masters of passive-aggressive communication. They speak in sighs, in pained looks, and in sentences dripping with subtext. The classic martyr phrase is, "Oh, don't worry about me, you go and have fun, I'll just stay here by myself." The literal words are permissive, but the emotional message is a dagger of guilt. You are a bad person for leaving me. They never state their needs directly. That would be too empowering. Instead, they complain and hint, forcing you to become a mind reader, trying to anticipate their needs to prevent their next wave of passive-aggressive suffering. They position themselves as helpless, which forces you into the role of the rescuer. Playing against the martyr pawn is emotionally heavy. You are burdened by a constant, low-grade sense of guilt and a feeling of unending obligation. You feel responsible for their happiness, which is an impossible and thankless task because their power is derived from their unhappiness. If they were truly happy, they would lose their primary tool of control. So you find yourself trapped, unable to set boundaries without being made to feel like a cruel, ungrateful person. But when you understand the game, you can see the moves for what they are. You can predict that any boundary you set will be met with a performance of hurt and victimhood. You can predict they will use guilt, not direct requests, to get what they want. This foreknowledge allows you to start disentangling yourself from the web of obligation, recognizing that their feelings are their own responsibility, not yours. Finally, let's look at the piece that moves with brutal, straightforward force. The critical rook. The rook moves in straight, harsh lines across the board, bulldozing anything in its path. The core motivation of the critical rook is to maintain a sense of superiority and control by consistently finding fault in others. Their criticism is not intended to be helpful, it is intended to diminish. Their fundamental fear is often their own deep-seated inadequacy. By relentlessly focusing on the flaws of others, they can avoid the terrifying prospect of looking at their own. Their moves are direct and demoralizing. They specialize in unsolicited advice, pointing out how you could have done something better. They deliver backhanded compliments that leave you feeling stung, not praised. They are experts at finding the one tiny cloud in a sky full of sunshine. You come home excited about a 98% on an exam, and their first question is, what happened to the other 2%? The critical rook chips away at your self-esteem, piece by piece. They create an environment where you feel you are constantly being judged and always falling short. Their criticism is often framed as, "I'm just being honest," or "I'm only trying to help you," which is a clever way to make you feel ungrateful for objecting to their put-downs. Playing against this piece is like being slowly eroded by a constant drip of acid. Your confidence dwindles. You start second-guessing yourself, hesitating to take risks or share good news for fear of the inevitable criticism. You may even find yourself internalizing their critical voice, becoming your own worst critic. You are perpetually striving for an approval they will never fully grant, because their power over you ends the moment you feel truly good about yourself. But now you can predict their moves. You can anticipate that your successes will be met with scrutiny, not just celebration. You can predict that their helpful feedback is a strategic move to keep you in a one-down position. This allows you to start building a shield. You can learn to stop seeking their validation, knowing it is a well that will always be dry. The narcissistic king, the gaslighting bishop, the martyr pawn, the critical rook. These are the primary pieces on the board. As you listen, one of them might have sounded painfully familiar. You may even be facing a player who uses a combination of these moves. The point, I will say again, is not to label. It is to know. By understanding the core fear and motivation driving each archetype, you strip away the emotional confusion their behavior causes. You are no longer asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" You are calmly observing, "I see, the rook is making its predictable move. The bishop is attempting to distort reality again." This knowledge is the foundation of your power. It is the beginning of your shift from pawn to player. You can now see the patterns. You can anticipate the attacks. The element of surprise is gone. Now that you understand the players and their general strategies, it's time to zoom in. We need to analyze the specific, tactical plays they use, the subtle manipulative techniques that are designed to trigger your brain's default settings. In the next chapter, we will open their playbook and decode their most effective tactics, one by one. Have you ever left a conversation feeling like you apologized for something you didn't even do? Have you ever tried to resolve a conflict only to find yourself an hour later arguing about something that happened 5 years ago with no idea how you got there? Or have you ever felt that dizzying, surreal sensation of being told that your clear memory of an event is completely wrong? If so, you have experienced the tactical side of manipulation. In the last chapter, we identified the key players on the board: the king, the bishop, the pawn, the rook. Now we must zoom in. We need to look at the specific moves they make, the well-honed plays they run to keep you confused, defensive, and emotionally off balance. This is their playbook. These tactics are the building blocks of their control, and they are devastatingly effective because each one is precision engineered to exploit the default settings of your brain that we discussed in Chapter 2. They are designed to trigger your negativity bias, ensnare your empathy, and most importantly, provoke that amygdala hijack, taking your rational mind offline. But we are about to diffuse them. The greatest power these tactics have is their invisibility. You feel their effects, but you don't see the mechanism. Today, we turn on the lights. We are going to name them, dissect them, and understand the neurological trick behind the curtain. Once you see the trick, you can never unsee it. And once you see it, the magic is gone. Let's open the playbook and examine the first and most insidious tactic: gaslighting. The term comes from a 1938 play, Gaslight, in which a manipulative husband tries to convince his wife she is going insane by, among other things, secretly dimming and brightening the gaslights in their home and then denying that it's happening. When she mentions the flickering lights, he tells her it's all in her head. His goal is to erode her trust in her own perceptions so completely that he can control her reality. This is the essence of gaslighting. It is the systematic denial of your lived experience. It is a slow-burn psychological poison that makes you question your memory, your judgment, and ultimately your sanity. Here's how it works in a conversation. You might say, "It really hurt my feelings last night when you called my new business idea stupid." A gaslighter will not engage with your feelings. They will attack the premise itself. They might respond with a look of utter bewilderment and say, "What are you talking about? I never said that. I said it was a risky idea and that I was worried about you. You're always twisting my words." Do you see the move? They didn't just disagree with you. They rewrote history. They replaced your memory with a more flattering version of their own. Now, you're no longer talking about your hurt feelings. You're trapped in a debate about what was actually said. Here is why this is so neurologically devastating. Your brain craves a consistent, coherent narrative of reality. It's how you make sense of the world. When someone you trust confidently presents a version of reality that directly contradicts your own clear memory, it creates a state of intense mental stress called cognitive dissonance. Your brain is holding two conflicting pieces of information at once. "I know what I heard," versus "this person insists I am wrong." To resolve this dissonance, your brain will desperately try to discard one of the beliefs. And because the gaslighter is so confident, so dismissive, and because your empathetic brain is programmed to give others the benefit of the doubt, you might start to think, well, maybe I did mishear them. Maybe I am too sensitive. You start to adjust your own memory to relieve the cognitive stress. Each time you do this, you hand over a tiny piece of your reality to them. Over time, this becomes a complete surrender. The gaslighter is attacking the very foundation of your autonomy, your ability to trust yourself. They are intentionally overloading your prefrontal cortex until it starts to shut down, leaving you in a fog of confusion and self-doubt. In that fog, you are easy to control. When you can't trust your own internal compass, you are forced to rely on theirs. Demystifying this tactic is your first line of defense. The next time it happens, you can silently say to yourself, "This is gaslighting. They are attempting to overwrite my reality. I will not allow it." Just naming it is an act of holding your ground.
Now for the second tactic, one often used by the gaslighter, but also a favorite of the narcissistic king, projection. Projection is a psychological defense mechanism where a person subconsciously denies their own negative traits, feelings, or behaviors by attributing them to someone else. In simpler terms, they take all their own internal garbage and dump it on your lawn. The toxic individual is often riddled with insecurity, shame, and a deep-seated fear of being flawed. To avoid the pain of looking at their own shortcomings, they act like a movie projector, beaming their own movie onto you. For example, a person who is secretly dishonest and constantly telling white lies may frequently accuse you of being untrustworthy or keeping secrets. A lazy and unmotivated person might criticize you for not working hard enough. A highly critical person, like the rook we discussed, will often accuse you of being judgmental. They are, in a very real sense, arguing with a mirror, but they've made you stand in front of it. On a biological level, projection is a brilliant move to trigger your amygdala. Being falsely accused is a profound social and emotional threat. It triggers a primal fear of being cast out of the tribe for wrongdoing. Your immediate instinctive reaction is to defend yourself. So when they accuse you of being selfish, you launch into a detailed defense, listing all the selfless things you've done. You pull up evidence, you try to reason with them. And just like that, you have fallen into their trap. The entire conversation is now about your alleged selfishness, not their actual behavior. You are so busy putting out the fire they started on your lawn that you fail to notice their own house is ablaze. This is a powerful diversionary tactic. It keeps you perpetually on the back foot, exhausted from defending yourself against a phantom enemy, an enemy that is really just their own reflection. The key to disarming projection is to stop accepting the package. When they try to hand you their garbage, you do not have to take it. You can learn to see the accusation not as a reflection of you, but as a confession about them. This internal shift stops the defensive reaction in its tracks. You are no longer triggered because you know the accusation isn't even about you. Let's move on to the third tactic, a disorienting and exhausting maneuver I call the cognitive DDoS attack. It's known as word salad. A DDoS, or distributed denial of service attack, is a cyber attack where a server is overwhelmed by flooding it with millions of pointless requests until it crashes. Word salad is the conversational equivalent. It is a barrage of circular arguments, accusations, non sequiturs, and irrelevant information that is designed to overwhelm your brain's processing capacity. You might try to address a simple issue, like, "I'm concerned about how much we've been spending on takeout food." You are trying to have a logical A to B conversation. In response, you get a word salad. They might say, "Oh, so you think I'm financially irresponsible? Is that what this is about? Just like your mother,
always criticizing. I remember that time in 2014 you bought that expensive jacket you never wore. And what about the fact that I'm the only one who ever remembers to take out the recycling? You're just trying to control me because you're stressed about work, which you wouldn't be if you just listened to my advice in the first place. What just happened? You're left standing there, head spinning, trying to mentally track 5 different accusations and 3 different timelines at once. Your initial, simple point is completely lost. This tactic works because it is a direct assault on your prefrontal cortex. The PFC, your logical brain, can only hold a few pieces of information in its working memory at one time. It tries to create logical connections and follow a linear argument. Word salad makes this impossible. It is a chaotic, structureless gish gallop of information. Your brain can't find a foothold. It can't find a logical thread to pull on. The result is cognitive exhaustion. Your brain literally gets tired. And when the PFC is exhausted, it can no longer regulate your emotions effectively. The amygdala takes over, not necessarily out of fear, but out of sheer frustration and overload. You might lash out in anger. This is pointless. You're not making any sense. Or you might just give up in despair. Fine, whatever. Forget I said anything. Either way, they have won. The original issue has been successfully buried under a mountain of verbal nonsense. They have avoided accountability by making a rational conversation impossible. Recognizing word salad is your liberation. The moment you identify it, you can give yourself permission to stop trying to make sense of the senseless. You are not losing the argument, you are recognizing that an argument is not actually taking place. It is a filibuster designed to run out your mental clock. Finally, let's look at a tactic that is especially cruel because it exploits your hope and your desire to please. It's called moving the goalposts. This is the game you can never win. The toxic individual sets up a condition for their approval, happiness, or for the resolution of a conflict. They say, if you could just be more supportive of my career, everything would be fine. Or, I'll be happy once we have enough money saved to buy a house. You, being a dedicated and caring person, pour all your energy into meeting this condition. You work harder, you sacrifice your own needs, you scrimp, and you save. You finally achieve the goal. You drag yourself across the finish line, exhausted but hopeful, ready for the promised peace and approval. And then, they move the goalpost. Yes, you have been more supportive, but now you're not spending enough time with the kids. Yes, we have the money saved, but now the market is too unstable. I'll be happy once we have an even bigger nest egg. The finish line vanishes and reappears miles down the road. The relief you expected is replaced by a crushing sense of futility. This tactic is a powerful form of intermittent reinforcement, which is one of the most effective ways to create addiction and obsession. By keeping the reward perpetually just out of reach, they keep you hooked and striving. It taps into your brain's dopamine-driven reward system. The anticipation of the reward, their approval, the end of the conflict, keeps you going, but the reward itself never truly arrives. This puts you in a state of chronic stress. You are in a perpetual state of almost there, constantly running on a hamster wheel, releasing cortisol because you are always trying, always falling short. This is designed to break your spirit. It fosters a sense of learned helplessness where you start to believe that nothing you do will ever be good enough. This feeling of inadequacy makes you easier to control. Understanding this pattern is the only way to get off the wheel. You must realize that the goalpost is not a fixed object. It is an illusion they control. The only way to win this particular game is to stop playing. It's to stop deriving your sense of accomplishment from their ever-shifting standards and to start defining success on your own terms. Gaslighting, projection, word salad, moving the goalposts. These are 4 of the core plays from the manipulator's playbook. They are illusions. They are tricks of the mind designed to exploit your biology. But they are no longer invisible to you. You can see them coming. You can name them as they happen. This knowledge by itself is a powerful shield. It interrupts the automatic emotional reaction. Instead of getting lost in the content of their accusations, you can now analyze the form of their attack. Instead of feeling the sting of their words, you can start to observe their tactics with the detached curiosity of a chess player studying their opponent's strategy. You now understand your own brain's vulnerabilities. You can identify the toxic archetypes you are facing, and you have decoded their playbook of manipulative tactics. All the pieces are on the board, and you can finally see them clearly. The landscape is mapped, the enemy's strategies are known, but all this knowledge is purely defensive. It is not enough to simply understand their game. To truly achieve the unshakable peace you deserve, you must create a new game entirely. Your game. In the next chapter, we reach the pivotal turning point of our entire journey. We are going to stop looking at them and start focusing on you. It is time to flip the board in your favor. It's time to cultivate the Grand Master's mindset. The only winning move is not to play their game. It's time to create your own. Let that sentence sink in. For the past 4 chapters, we have been on a reconnaissance mission. We've scouted the invisible battlefield. We've studied the biological wiring of your own incredible brain and identified the vulnerabilities in its ancient software. We've mapped the opposing forces, identifying the narcissistic king, the gaslighting bishop, and their counterparts. We've even stolen their playbook, deconstructing their most effective tactics until they lie exposed and powerless in the light of your awareness. This knowledge is essential. It is your map. It is your intelligence report. But knowledge alone is not victory. You can have the most detailed map in the world, but if you don't decide on a new destination, you will continue to walk the same old, worn-out paths that lead directly into enemy territory. This chapter is the turning point. This is where we stop being students of their dysfunction and start becoming masters of our own minds. This is where we stop analyzing their moves and start designing our own game. A game with new rules, a new objective, and a new victor, you. Everything we have discussed so far has been about understanding the problem. Everything that follows will be about embodying the solution. Welcome to the Grandmaster's mindset. This mindset is built on 2 foundational, non-negotiable principles. These 2 truths, once you integrate them not just as ideas but as core beliefs, will fundamentally flip the board in your favor. They will form the unshakable bedrock upon which you will build your new reality. The first principle is this: you cannot change them, but you can make their behavior irrelevant. I want you to take a moment and feel the profound liberation in that statement. How much of your precious mental and emotional energy have you spent trying to get them to see your point of view? How many hours have you exhausted trying to explain your feelings, hoping for that breakthrough moment of empathy and understanding that never comes? How many times have you carefully crafted the perfect argument, the perfect piece of evidence, believing that if you could just present your case logically enough, they would finally have to admit you were right? It is a noble effort, born from the beautiful, empathetic part of you that believes in reason and connection. It is also a complete and utter waste of your life force. Trying to change a deeply entrenched toxic person is like trying to argue with a hurricane. You can stand on the shore and scream logic at the wind. You can show the waves charts and graphs proving they are being unreasonable. You can explain to the rain how much it's hurting your feelings. The hurricane will not listen. The hurricane will not change its course. The hurricane will simply continue to be a hurricane, and you will be left standing there, soaked, exhausted, and demoralized. The Grand Master's mindset doesn't try to stop the rain. The Grand Master builds a shelter and learns to use an umbrella. Their behavior is the weather. It is an external condition. It might be stormy, unpredictable, and unpleasant, but it is separate from you. Your internal state, your thoughts, your emotional regulation, your sense of peace, is your shelter. For too long, you have been standing outside, letting their weather patterns dictate your internal climate. From this moment forward, you will stop focusing on controlling the storm and focus exclusively on fortifying your shelter. When you truly accept that you cannot change them, you reclaim all the energy you were wasting on that impossible project. You stop engaging in pointless, circular arguments. You stop hoping they will become the person you wish they were. You accept the reality of who they are, and you shift your focus to the one and only thing you have absolute control over, your own internal response. This shift is the first, most critical move in your new game.
The second principle is the very heart of mental chess. It is this: the game is won or lost entirely inside your mind before you ever say a word. Our culture teaches us that victory is external. It's about having the last word, delivering the perfect comeback, or getting the other person to apologize and admit defeat. In the world of mental chess, all of that is irrelevant. It's a distraction. It's a sideshow. The true victory is not external validation. It is internal regulation. The win isn't getting them to stop their attack. The win is remaining calm during their attack. The win isn't proving them wrong. The win is knowing your own truth so deeply that their attempts to distort it are no more bothersome than a fly buzzing on the other side of a window. The win is the silence in your own mind. It's the absence of that frantic internal scrambling and the presence of a calm, observant clarity. When you redefine victory in this way, you take back all of your power. Why? Because your internal state is your territory. They cannot touch it without your permission. As long as victory depends on their reaction, they are in control. The moment victory becomes about your own internal state, you become the sole authority. You are the only one with a key to that shelter you've built. Now, let's connect this new mindset directly to your biology. Remember our discussion of the amygdala hijack. Their entire game is predicated on their ability to trigger your ancient survival software, knocking your prefrontal cortex, your inner grandmaster, offline. The grandmaster's mindset is, at its core, the conscious practice of keeping your prefrontal cortex online no matter what turbulence they create. How do we do this? We begin by training the foundational skill of all mental mastery: mindfulness. Now, mindfulness is a word that gets thrown around a lot, so let's be very clear about what it means in this context. Mindfulness is not about clearing your mind or chanting in a cave. It is simply the act of paying attention to the present moment on purpose, without judgment. It is the practice of observing your own thoughts and feelings as they arise without getting swept away by them. Think of it like this. Your amygdala is the shrieking fire alarm in your brain. For years, the moment that alarm went off, you've instinctively believed there was a fire. You've panicked, you've run, you've reacted. Mindfulness is the skill of training a calm, rational security chief, your prefrontal cortex, to stay at their post when the alarm bells ring. When the alarm of anxiety or anger goes off, the mindful security chief doesn't immediately evacuate the building. They get a notification. They hear the alarm. They feel the jolt of adrenaline. But instead of panicking, they calmly turn to their monitors. They observe the feeling. Ah, the alarm in the chest is going off. Interesting. I feel a tightening in my stomach. Noted. They are observing the data of their internal state without being consumed by it. They are watching the storm, not becoming the storm. By observing their emotional state with this detached curiosity, they create a tiny gap of space between the trigger and the response. And in that space lies all of your power. In that space, you have a choice. You can choose to follow the old reactive path into fight or flight, or you can choose the new path of calm observation. This brings us back to the incredible hope-filled engine of neuroplasticity. Every single time you practice this,
Every time you feel that flash of anger and choose to observe it instead of react to it, every time you feel the sting of a criticism and choose to watch the feeling instead of defending yourself, you are physically altering the structure of your brain. Imagine your mind is a vast, fertile garden. For years, because of your interactions with toxic people, the weeds of reactivity, anxiety, and self-doubt have been watered daily. They have grown thick and strong, choking out everything else. You've been trying to win by arguing with the weeds, by reasoning with them, by pleading with them to stop growing. The Grandmaster's mindset is the decision to stop paying attention to the weeds and to start planting a new garden. Mindfulness is the act of tilling the soil. The techniques you are about to learn in the following chapters are the seeds for new plants, plants of calm, resilience, and unshakable self-worth. Your conscious, focused attention is the water and the sunlight. The first few times you do this, it will feel difficult. You are forging a new neural pathway. You are clearing new ground in the garden. But every repetition makes it easier. You are literally building new brain structure. The old weedy path of reactivity through neglect will begin to wither. The new, cultivated path of calm observation will become your brain's new default. This isn't just a nice metaphor. This is the biological reality of how you change your life. You are a sculptor, and your brain is your marble. Your focused attention is your chisel. So, how do we begin? How do we take our first step on this new path? We start by making one simple, powerful shift in our perspective. It is the first practical application of the Grandmaster's mindset. It is the shift from seeing yourself as a victim to seeing yourself as an observer. The victim mindset is passive and powerless. It is defined by the question, why is this happening to me? This question, while understandable, traps you in a cycle of blame, resentment, and helplessness. It positions you as the target, the recipient of someone else's bad behavior. It implicitly gives them all the power. The observer mindset is active and powerful. It is defined by the question, what is happening here? Do you feel the difference? It is a subtle shift in language, but it creates a seismic shift in your internal state. Why is this happening to me is a personal cry of pain. What is happening here is an impersonal query for data. When you adopt the observer mindset, you emotionally remove yourself from the center of the equation. You are no longer the target of the attack. You are a scientist studying a fascinating, if predictable, phenomenon. The next time the toxic person begins their routine, be it criticism, guilt-tripping, or gaslighting, your new internal dialogue is not, "I can't believe they're doing this to me again." Your new internal dialogue is, fascinating. The narcissistic king is making a predictable move to solicit narcissistic supply. Or, there it is. The gaslighting bishop is attempting to alter reality to avoid accountability. Interesting tactic. This simple shift does something miraculous on a neurological level. By reframing a personal attack as an impersonal data point, you strip it of its emotional charge. It is no longer a threat to your sense of self. And if it's not a threat, your amygdala has no reason to sound the alarm. Your inner grandmaster stays online. You remain calm, not because you are suppressing your feelings, but because you are no longer generating the same high-intensity feelings of being victimized. This is your first move. This is the opening gambit in your new game of mental chess. Before you learn any specific nonverbal techniques, before you master the art of disengagement, you must first master this internal shift. Practice it. In every interaction, consciously choose the observer role. See yourself in a lab coat, holding a clipboard, taking notes on human behavior. This is the beginning of flipping the board. You are redefining the rules. You are changing the objective. The goal is no longer to win their game, but to be untouchable in yours. The prize is not their surrender, but your own serene, unshakable peace. The foundation is now laid. You have the two core principles and the first practical mindset shift. You are ready for the strategic, tactical moves that will protect your peace and make you an impossible target for their games. It's time to learn your first defensive masterpiece, the unbreachable defense of mastering the art of observation. What if you could watch their chaos unfold as if you were watching a movie? Imagine it. You are sitting in a comfortable, secure theater. The lighting is low, the seat is plush, and you are at a perfect, safe distance from the screen. On that screen, a drama is playing out. There is shouting, there are accusations, there are tears. It is intense. It is chaotic. But you, in your seat, are completely untouched. You can observe the drama. You can analyze the characters' motivations. You can even predict the next line of dialogue because you've seen this movie before. But you are not in the movie. The drama on the screen cannot leap out and harm you. You are separate. You are safe. You are simply the observer. This is not a fantasy. This is your new reality. This is the first and most fundamental defensive technique in the entire art of mental chess. In the last chapter, we embraced the Grandmaster's mindset and made the pivotal shift from victim to observer. Now, we are going to learn how to make that mindset your moment-to-moment reality. We are going to build the theater. We are going to construct the unbreachable defense. This technique is called cultivating the observer self. To understand its power, we first need to recognize a subtle but profound illusion that most of us live under. We tend to believe that we are our thoughts, and we are our emotions. When a feeling of anger arises, we say, "I am angry." When a feeling of hurt arises, we say, "I am hurt." We fuse our identity with the feeling. We become the anger. We become the hurt. We are completely enmeshed in the experience, swept away by the internal storm. The observer self is the practice of severing this fusion. It is the realization that you are not your thoughts and you are not your emotions. You are the one who is aware of your thoughts and emotions. Think of it this way. You are the sky. Your thoughts, feelings, and sensations are the weather. The weather is constantly changing. One moment, the sky of your awareness might be filled with the dark, stormy clouds of anger. The next moment, it might be filled with the gray fog of confusion or the sharp rain of anxiety. And sometimes it is clear and sunny with the warmth of joy. The weather is temporary. It passes. But the sky, your core conscious self, remains unchanged. The sky is never damaged by the storm. It simply holds the storm. It is the vast, silent, peaceful container in which the weather happens. For years, you have been identifying with the weather. You've been living as if you were the storm cloud. The practice of the observer self is to remember that you are the sky. This creates an internal buffer zone, a sacred space of peace between you and your emotional reactions. And when you have space between you and your reactions, you also create space between the toxic person's behavior and your response. In that space, the amygdala hijack cannot take root. In that space, your inner Grand Master remains in control. So, how do we practice this? How do we build this internal theater and take our seat as the calm observer? It begins with a simple, conscious exercise that you can do right now, and, more importantly, that you can do in the heat of a difficult interaction. Let's try it. I want you to find a comfortable position and just for a moment close your eyes if you feel safe doing so. First, bring your awareness to your physical body. Feel the weight of your body on the chair or the floor. Notice the points of contact. Feel the fabric of your clothes against your skin. Notice the air temperature on your cheeks. You are not judging these sensations. You are not trying to change them. You are simply noticing them. You are observing the physical data of this present moment. Now, bring your awareness to your breath. Feel the air entering your nostrils, filling your lungs. Feel your chest or your abdomen rise and fall. Don't try to breathe in any special way. Just observe the natural rhythm of your breath, coming in and going out. Your breath is your anchor to the present moment, an anchor to the observer self. Now, with this gentle awareness, I want you to scan your internal landscape. What is happening in there right now? Are there thoughts moving through your mind? Don't grab onto them. Don't follow them down the rabbit hole. Just watch them as if they were clouds passing in the sky. Ah, a thought about my to-do list. There it goes. A thought about this audiobook. Interesting. You are not the thoughts. You are the one watching the thoughts. Next, scan your body for emotions. Emotions often live in the body as physical sensations. Is there a tightness anywhere? A hollowness? A warmth? A buzzing? You don't even need to name the emotion. Just notice the raw physical sensation of it. There is a tightness in my shoulders. There is a fluttering in my stomach. You are not the tightness. You are the one who is aware of the tightness. This is the practice. It is simple, but it is not easy. Your mind will want to get back into the movie, to fuse with the thoughts and feelings. Your job, as the observer, is to gently and kindly again and again return to your seat. Return to the anchor of your breath. Return to simply noticing. This exercise is your training ground. It is how you build the neural pathways of the observer self. Now, let's take this skill out of the training gym and onto the battlefield. This is where we employ our central analogy for this chapter. You are now going to become the scientist at the volcano. Imagine the toxic person in your life is an active volcano. Their behavior, the outbursts, the criticism, the guilt-tripping, is a volcanic eruption. It is loud, fiery, chaotic, and potentially destructive. For years, your approach to this volcano has been reactive. When it starts to rumble, you've run up to the crater and tried to reason with it. You've yelled at the lava. You've felt personally attacked by the ash cloud. You've let the heat and the smoke overwhelm you, triggering your fight or flight response and sending you into a panic. You have been standing at the base of the volcano, getting burned. The Grand Master does not do this. The Grand Master is a scientist, a volcanologist. The scientist does not take the eruption personally. They understand that a volcano erupts because of the pressure and instability deep within it. It has nothing to do with them. The eruption is a predictable, if unfortunate, feature of the volcano itself. So, what does the scientist do? They do not run towards the lava. They retreat to a reinforced observation bunker at a safe distance. This bunker is your observer self. It is the internal state you just practiced creating, anchored, grounded, aware. From inside this safe bunker, the scientist watches the eruption through a reinforced window. They don't judge the volcano. What a bad manipulative volcano! They don't try to change the volcano. They simply observe and they take notes. They reframe the drama as data. This is what it looks like in practice. You are in an interaction, and the other person's volcano starts to erupt. They start making accusations. They start using that tone of voice. Inside your mental bunker, your inner scientist gets to work. Your internal monologue shifts from, "I can't believe you're saying this to me. How could you be so cruel?" to something like this. Observation. Subject's voice is increasing in volume by approximately 20 decibels. Facial expression indicates agitation. Tactic employed, projection. They are accusing me of being selfish, which is a trait they themselves exhibit. Interesting. I am noticing a physiological response in my own body. Heart rate is increasing, and there is a sensation of heat in my chest. This is a predictable cortisol release. Activating protocol. Return awareness to my breath. The lava is flowing, but I am secure in the bunker. No verbal response is required at this time. I will simply observe the phenomenon until it subsides. Do you feel the power in this? You have transformed a personal attack into an impersonal scientific observation. You have turned their chaos into your data. This is not about being cold or unfeeling. The scientist may still feel a sense of awe or even sadness at the destructive power of the volcano, but they are not consumed by it. They maintain their professional, analytical distance. This reframing has a profound effect on your brain. The amygdala, your brain's smoke detector, is not wired to panic in response to data. It panics in response to perceived threats. When you are a target of an attack, it screams danger. When you are a scientist observing a behavioral pattern, your prefrontal cortex, the logical, analytical part of your brain, stays fully engaged. You are using the most evolved part of your brain to analyze the situation, which naturally calms and overrides the primitive reactive part. You are, in a very real sense, keeping your inner grandmaster at the chessboard while the rest of the room is on fire. This will feel strange at first. It will require conscious effort. But with practice, it becomes your new default setting. You will begin to find a strange sense of calm curiosity in situations that used to send you into a tailspin. You will notice the patterns of their behavior with the detached interest of a field biologist observing a creature in its natural habitat. This is the unbreachable defense. It is a fortress built not of walls and stone, but of pure awareness. The beauty of this defense is that it is completely invisible. The other person has no idea what you are doing. From the outside, you simply appear calm, perhaps a little distant. You are not arguing, you are not defending yourself. You are not giving them the emotional reaction, the narcissistic supply that they crave. They are spewing fire and lava, expecting you to run and scream, and instead, you are calmly taking notes from behind a window. To them, this is baffling. An unresponsive target is a deeply unsatisfying target. Without your emotional reaction to fuel it, the eruption often loses its energy much faster.
This is the foundation. This is your shelter from the storm. Mastering the art of observation, becoming the sky to their weather, the scientist to their volcano, is the single most important skill you will ever develop in protecting your peace. It is the move that makes all other moves possible. Now that you have your defense, now that you are secure in your internal fortress, we can begin to explore the strategic, external moves of mental chess. How do you respond verbally or non-verbally from this place of calm observation? What are the practical techniques for disengaging from their attacks and making yourself a target made of smoke? That is where we are going next. It is time to learn the silent checkmate. How do you win a fight without throwing a punch? How do you checkmate an opponent who thrives on conflict without ever moving a single piece into an attack? You become a target made of smoke. You become so insubstantial, so non-reactive, so utterly unfulfilling to attack that their swords and arrows pass right through you, finding nothing to strike. Their energy, their venom, their carefully crafted provocations meet with a calm, quiet void. And in that void, their power dissolves into nothing. Welcome to the art of strategic disengagement. This is the practical, tactical application of the observer self you cultivated in the last chapter. You are secure in your mental fortress, watching the battle from a safe distance. Now we are going to learn how to manage the external interaction from that place of power. I need to be very clear about something. The techniques in this chapter may, on the surface, look passive. Our culture often mistakes quiet for weakness and non-engagement for surrender. This is a profound misunderstanding. Strategic disengagement is not passivity. It is a sophisticated, high-level power move. It is the martial art of the mind, where you use your opponent's aggressive energy against them by offering no resistance for it to push against. Remember, the toxic person is fueled by your reaction. Your emotional response is their currency. It's the validation they seek, the drama they crave.
Whether you respond with anger, tears, or frantic self-defense, it is all a win for them because it proves they have the power to affect you. Strategic disengagement is a form of psychological starvation. You are going to consciously and calmly cut off their supply. You are going to make interacting with you in a toxic way the most boring, unrewarding experience they have all day. Let's open the disengagement toolkit. These are the silent checkmates, the moves you make without ever announcing your strategy. The first and most powerful technique in your arsenal is the gray rock method. Imagine you are walking on a beautiful beach. There are colorful shells, interesting pieces of driftwood, and sparkling sea glass. Your attention is naturally drawn to these things. And then there are the gray rocks. Thousands of them. They are dull, plain, and completely unremarkable. You might glance at them, but your attention quickly moves on. You don't pick them up. You certainly don't get into a conversation with one. They are simply there.
When you use the gray rock method, you become one of those rocks. You make yourself the most boring, uninteresting, and unresponsive person in the room. You become a conversational dead end. You are polite, but you are dull. You are present physically, but you give them nothing to latch onto emotionally. Here's why this is a neuroscientific masterstroke. Toxic individuals, particularly those with strong narcissistic traits, are essentially drama addicts. Their brains are wired to seek out high-intensity emotional exchanges. When they provoke you and you react, you are giving them the equivalent of a dopamine hit. It's a reward. Your reaction, positive or negative, tells their brain, "This works. This is stimulating. Let's do it again." The gray rock method is a form of behavioral extinction. You are consciously removing the reward. When they poke you and you fail to react, they get no dopamine. There is no drama. There is no stimulation. Their brain learns over time that interacting with you in this way is no longer rewarding. It is boring. And like a bored child, they will eventually drop the uninteresting toy and go looking for a shinier one elsewhere. So, how do you do it? It's a combination of body language and verbal minimalism. First, your body language becomes neutral. You maintain a relaxed, calm posture. You avoid intense, prolonged eye contact, which can be interpreted as a challenge or an invitation to connect. Your facial expression is placid and non-committal, like someone listening to a weather report. Second, and most importantly, are your verbal responses. You are going to remove all the juicy, emotional, and detailed information from your speech. Your answers to their questions become short, factual, and devoid of opinion or feeling. You rely on a small arsenal of non-committal phrases. Let's run a scenario. The critical rook in your life says, after you've just cooked a large meal for the family, "This chicken is a little dry. You know, my grandmother used to brine hers for 24 hours. That's really the only way to do it properly." The old reactive you might have launched into a defense. "It's not dry. I followed the recipe exactly. I spent hours on this meal, and all you can do is criticize. Nothing is ever good enough for you." This response, while completely understandable, is a massive reward. You have just given them a huge dose of emotional drama. Checkmate for them. The gray rock you, however, responds differently. From your calm, observant bunker, you hear the predictable criticism. You take a breath, and you offer one of these responses. "Uh-huh. I see. You could be right. Thanks for the feedback. I'll have to remember that." You deliver the line in a calm, flat tone, and then you immediately change the subject or engage with someone else. You don't argue, you don't defend, you don't explain. You give their provocative comment the same emotional weight you would give to the sentence, "The sky is blue today." You make it a boring, factual data point that requires no further engagement. The first time you do this, it will feel incredibly strange, and their reaction might be to escalate.
They might try harder, poking you with a sharper stick, trying to get the reaction they are used to. What's wrong with you? Don't you care about improving your cooking? Your response remains the same. Calm. Boring. I'll think about that. Your consistency is key. You are retraining them on how they can expect to be treated. You are teaching them that the drama store is closed for business. The second tool in your kit is a vital preventative measure. I call it the information diet. Think of your personal information, your hopes, your fears, your insecurities, your passions, your private struggles as ammunition. In a healthy, trusting relationship, sharing this ammunition is a beautiful act of vulnerability that builds intimacy. With a toxic person, you are literally handing them the bullets they will use to shoot you later. They are expert data miners. They listen, they remember. They file away every piece of personal data you give them, waiting for the perfect moment to use it. Did you confide in them that you're feeling insecure about a project at work? A few weeks later, during an argument, they'll casually say, "Well, no wonder you're so stressed. You've never been good under pressure at work." Did you share a childhood fear? They will find a way to mock you or make you feel small. The information diet is the simple, conscious act of restricting their access to this ammunition. This isn't about being dishonest. It's about being strategically private. Here's how it works. When they ask a probing, personal question, you provide a brief, general, and boring answer, and then you politely pivot the conversation back to them. People, especially self-absorbed ones, generally love to talk about themselves. You can use this to your advantage. Let's say the martyr pawn asks, with that concerned tone that is really just a fishing expedition, "How are things really going with you and your partner? You two seem a little distant lately." The old you might have opened the floodgates, seeking their support, and in doing so, handing them a treasure trove of sensitive information they could use to triangulate, gossip, or guilt trip you with later. The new you, the strategic you, puts them on an information diet. You respond with a calm, vague statement. "Oh, we're fine, just busy with work as always." And then the immediate pivot. "But that reminds me, how did that doctor's appointment you were worried about go?" The pivot is key. It's polite, it shows you were listening to them at some point, and it skillfully redirects the conversational spotlight away from you and back onto them. Their favorite subject. You have successfully navigated the interaction without revealing anything of substance. You have kept your ammunition in your own armory. The third technique is a bit more advanced. It is a purely internal move, a silent mental judo throw that dissipates the energy of their most ridiculous attacks. This is the internal nod. When a toxic person makes a truly outrageous, unfair, or delusional accusation, our natural, hardwired instinct is to resist it with every fiber of our being. When they say, "You're just like your father, you always have to be right," your mind screams, "No, I'm not. That's not true." This internal resistance, this violent mental pushback, creates a massive surge of stress hormones. Even if you say nothing out loud, you are in a state of internal war. You are getting burned by the volcano's heat. The internal nod is a practice of radical, non-resistant acceptance of their reality without ever conceding that it is the reality. It's a subtle but game-changing shift. When they launch their absurd accusation, "You never support me," you do not resist it internally. Instead, in the quiet of your own mind, you give a gentle, metaphorical nod. And your internal monologue is this. In your version of reality, from your seat in the theater, based on your life experiences and your current emotional state, that is 100% how you see this. Wow, I am observing that this is your truth right now. Let me be absolutely clear. This is not agreement. You are not saying, "You're right, I don't support you." That would be surrender. You are saying, "I acknowledge that this is your perception. You are treating their accusation not as a fact to be debated, but as a piece of data to be observed. This mental move is incredibly powerful because it stops the internal war. There is nothing to fight against. You are not pushing back against their statement, so it flows past you like water. You can't be hit by a punch that you offer no resistance to. By internally agreeing with their perception as a perception, you rob the accusation of its power to trigger you. It stops the amygdala hijack before it can even begin. Outwardly, you might combine this with the gray rock method. While you are performing your internal nod, you might say out loud, "I hear that you feel that way," or "I'm sorry you feel that way." These are statements of empathetic observation, not of guilt or agreement. You are acknowledging their feeling without taking responsibility for it. The gray rock method, the information diet, and the internal nod. This is your disengagement toolkit. These are your silent checkmates. They are not about being weak, they are about being smart. They are about recognizing that your mental and emotional energy is your most precious resource. You will no longer waste it by trying to win a game that is unwinnable. You will no longer offer yourself up as a target for someone else's dysfunction. You will become smoke. You will become a gray rock, and you will preserve your peace, a peace that is more valuable than any argument you could ever win. You are now armed with a powerful defense and a set of brilliant disengagement tactics. But to make this fortress truly unbreachable, we need to build it on a foundation of solid rock. We need to go deeper, beyond tactics, and forge an unshakable sense of self. It's time to build your internal boundaries. What if your sense of self was so strong that nobody could talk you out of it? What if your internal feeling of worth, of goodness, of competence was so deeply rooted and self-generated that a storm of criticism, disapproval, or manipulative guilt could rage around you and that core sense of you would not even tremble? This is not about arrogance. It is not about being closed off to feedback. It is about building an internal home so solid, so well constructed, that you are no longer at the mercy of the external weather. For too long, you have been living in a tent, and the toxic people in your life have known exactly which ropes to cut to make it all come crashing down on you. Today, we pour the foundation. Today, we build the frame. Today, we fortify your mind by forging unshakable internal boundaries. When we hear the word boundaries, we typically think of a line we draw in the sand, a rule we set for other people. We think of saying things like, "You are not allowed to speak to me that way," or "If you continue to criticize my parenting, I will have to leave." These are external boundaries. They are an essential tool for healthy relationships. They are our way of teaching people how we want to be treated. We communicate a limit, and if the other person respects us, they will honor that limit. But you're here because you are dealing with people who do not respect limits. For a toxic individual, a boundary is not a respectful request to be honored. It is a challenge. It is a wall they see as their personal mission to knock down. When you say, "You can't do that," their entire being screams, "Watch me." So you set the boundary, they cross it, and you find yourself in an exhausting cycle. You get upset, you defend the boundary, they create a storm of drama, and you are left feeling defeated and wondering why your perfectly reasonable limits are so ineffective. It's because you were trying to enforce the rules of a civilized game on a player who has no intention of playing by them. This is why in the world of mental chess, we must shift our focus from the external to the internal. We must stop trying to build flimsy fences around them and start building a fortress inside ourselves. An internal boundary is not a rule you set for someone else. It is a standard you set for yourself. It is a non-negotiable commitment to your own well-being and integrity. An external boundary says, "You must stop yelling at me." An internal boundary says, I will not participate in conversations where I am being yelled at. Do you feel the shift? The first statement is an attempt to control their behavior. It is a demand that, with a toxic person, is likely to fail. The second statement is a declaration of control over your own behavior. It is a promise you make to yourself. It doesn't require their permission. It doesn't require their cooperation. Your power is no longer dependent on their compliance.
An external boundary says, "You need to stop making me feel guilty." An internal boundary says, "I will no longer take responsibility for managing another adult's emotions." The external boundary is a plea. The internal boundary is a policy. It is a personal constitution. It is your unwavering commitment to your own sanity. And building this constitution is the ultimate power move. To do this, we must first dismantle the primary mechanism that makes us so vulnerable to manipulation: our reliance on external validation. From the moment we are born, we are wired to seek approval. It is a primal survival instinct. An infant whose cries are met with warmth and care learns that they are safe and valued. A child who is praised for their achievements feels a surge of pleasure and belonging. Our brains are flooded with feel-good neurochemicals like dopamine and oxytocin when we receive positive feedback from our tribe. For our ancestors, being approved of by the group meant survival. It meant access to food, protection, and mates. Rejection meant exile and almost certain death. So this isn't a flaw in your character. It's deep, ancient programming. The need to be liked, to be approved of, to be seen as good is baked into your very DNA. And toxic people are masters at exploiting this. They understand on an intuitive level that your sense of worth is often tied to their opinion of you. So they turn their approval into a currency. They make it a scarce and precious resource that they can grant or withdraw to control your behavior. When you do what they want, they give you a small crumb of praise, a moment of warmth. You feel that neurological rush of relief and pleasure. I am good. I am safe. Your brain registers this as a reward. When you displease them, when you try to set a boundary or express a different opinion, they withdraw that approval instantly. They become cold, critical, or play the victim. You feel the neurological pain of rejection, that ancient fear of exile. I am bad. I am in danger. This cycle of reward and punishment is the very definition of behavioral conditioning. It is, quite literally, an addiction. You become addicted to the highs of their approval and terrified of the lows of their disapproval. Your internal state becomes a yo-yo, and they are the one holding the string. You start to edit yourself, to shrink yourself, to abandon your own needs, all in a desperate attempt to secure their validation and avoid their rejection. The only way to break this addiction is to find a new, more reliable, and infinitely more satisfying source of that validation. That source is you. You must become your own primary supplier of worth, approval, and security. This is not a quick fix. This is a practice. It is the work of a lifetime. But it begins with a conscious decision and a set of practical steps. This is what I call the self-validation protocol. The first step of the protocol is to become your own compass. An addict looks for their next fix outside of themselves. An empowered person looks for direction from within. You need to define your own true north. This means getting radically clear on your core values. Not the values your parents gave you, not the values society expects of you, but your values. Take some time with this. Sit down with a journal and ask yourself, what truly matters to me? What principles do I want to guide my life? Your list might include things like integrity, kindness, peace, authenticity, growth, courage. Make a list of your top 3 to 5 core values. This list is now your compass. This is your new source of direction.
From this day forward, when you make a decision or take an action, you will measure its rightness not by asking, "What will they think of this?" but by asking, "Is this in alignment with my values?" If one of your core values is peace, and you are in a situation with a toxic person who is trying to draw you into a chaotic, circular argument, the word salad we talked about, your compass gives you a clear direction. Engaging in the argument moves you away from your true north of peace. Therefore, the right move is to disengage. It doesn't matter if they call you a coward. It doesn't matter if they accuse you of running away. You are not guided by their opinion. You are guided by your compass. This is the first step to reclaiming your power. The second step is the daily practice of self-acknowledgement. Building self-worth is like building a muscle. It requires consistent, repetitive exercise. This practice is your workout. At the end of every single day, I want you to take 2 minutes to acknowledge yourself. You can write it down, say it out loud, or just think it through. Identify 1 to 3 things you did that day that were in alignment with your values, regardless of the outcome. This is crucial. We are detaching your sense of worth from external results and attaching it to your internal integrity. Maybe your value is courage. Your acknowledgement might be, "I was terrified to speak up in that meeting, but I did it anyway, because it was the right thing to do." It doesn't matter if your idea was shot down. You are acknowledging the courage, not the outcome. Maybe your value is kindness. Your acknowledgement might be, "I wanted to snap back at that rude cashier, but I took a breath and responded with basic decency." You are celebrating your own emotional regulation. Maybe your value is authenticity. My family member made a racist joke, and instead of staying silent like I usually do, I said, "I'm not comfortable with that kind of talk." It was awkward and they got mad, but I stood in my truth. When you do this every day, you are actively rewiring your brain. You are building new neural pathways. You are training your brain to look to you for that dopamine hit of approval instead of looking to them. You are becoming your own cheerleader, your own source of encouragement. After a few weeks of this practice, you will notice a subtle but profound shift. Their criticism will start to feel less important because you are already secure in the knowledge that you are living in alignment with your own values. Their opinion is just noise. Your acknowledgement is the signal.
The third step is a powerful visualization technique to help you in the heat of the moment. I want you to consciously curate your internal counsel. Right now, whose voice is the loudest in your head when you feel self-doubt? For many of us, it's the internalized voice of our harshest critic, a parent, a teacher, or the toxic person in our life. We have given them a permanent seat at the table in our own mind, and they are constantly whispering criticism and doubt in our ear. It's time to fire them. You are now going to consciously choose a new board of directors for your mind. This is your internal counsel. I want you to choose 3 to 5 figures, real or imagined, who represent the qualities you most admire. Who embodies wisdom to you? Who embodies unconditional love? Who embodies courage? Your counsel might include a loving grandparent who always believed in you, a historical figure you admire, like Maya Angelou or Marcus Aurelius, a mentor who saw your potential, a spiritual guide, or even a future version of yourself, the wise, calm, powerful you of 10 years from now. These are now your trusted advisors. When you are in a difficult situation, when that toxic person is gaslighting you or criticizing you, and you feel that old familiar sting of self-doubt, you are going to perform a mental pattern interrupt. You are going to pause, take a breath, and silently consult your counsel. You ask them for guidance. Wise future self, what is the most aligned action for me to take right now? Grandma, what would you tell me in this moment? Marcus Aurelius, what is the stoic, virtuous response here? What this powerful exercise does is it immediately drowns out the voice of the internalized critic with a chorus of wise, loving, and empowering voices that you have chosen. It shifts you out of the reactive, childlike state of needing approval and into a resourceful, centered adult state of seeking wisdom. You are replacing their programming with your own. These three practices, the compass, the acknowledgement, and the counsel, are the pillars of your new internal fortress. When this fortress is built, the toxic person's tactics become obsolete. Gaslighting no longer works because your reality is anchored to your own internal compass. The critical rook's constant fault-finding loses its sting because you are no longer a starving beggar for their crumbs of approval. You are feasting at a banquet of your own self-acknowledgement. The martyr pawn's attempts to entangle you in guilt fail because your internal boundary is crystal clear. I am responsible for my own emotional state, and they are responsible for theirs. Building these internal boundaries is the ultimate act of self-love. It is the quiet, dignified, and unshakable declaration that you are the sole authority in your own life. You are the sovereign of your own mind. You now have a fortress. You have a silent defense. You have a toolkit of disengagement. You are no longer just reacting to the game. You are shaping it from a place of profound internal strength. Now it's time to put it all together. It's time to move from defense to offense, not an offense of attack, but a proactive, strategic offense to protect your peace and reclaim your power for the long term. It's time to plan your endgame.
Winning isn't about beating them. It's about making them irrelevant to your happiness. Think about the traditional image of a chess grandmaster at the end of a long, grueling match. They make the final, decisive move. Checkmate. The opponent's king is trapped, the game is over. But what does the grandmaster do next? Do they gloat? Do they flip the board? Do they follow their opponent home, endlessly reminding them of their victory? No. They offer a quiet handshake, and then they move on. They move on to the next game, to their next meal, to the rest of their life. The defeated opponent and the finished game cease to occupy their mental and emotional space. The victory wasn't the opponent's defeat. It was the successful execution of their own strategy. The ultimate prize is the freedom to walk away, to reclaim their focus, and to invest their energy in what comes next. This is your endgame. For the past several chapters, you have learned how to survive the match. You've built an unbreachable defense, mastered the art of disengagement, and fortified your internal world until it is a fortress. You know how to weather their attacks and protect your king. But survival is not the ultimate goal. The goal is to live a life so rich, so peaceful, and so aligned with your own values that the games of toxic people become a minor, insignificant distraction on the periphery of your world. It's time to move from a defensive posture to a proactive strategy. It's time to stop just playing the game when it's forced upon you and start designing your life in a way that protects your peace by default. This is the endgame strategy, the art of preserving your energy and reclaiming your power for the long term. The first and most critical component of this strategy is to fundamentally change how you view your most valuable asset. This asset is not your time, your money, or your reputation. It is your mental and emotional energy. I want you to start thinking of your energy as a finite, measurable resource, like money in a bank account. Every morning, you wake up with a certain amount of this energy, let's say 100 units. Everything you do throughout the day is a transaction. A productive hour of work might cost 5 units, but generate a feeling of accomplishment that deposits 10 units back for a net gain. A walk in nature might cost 2 units of physical energy, but deposit 20 units of mental peace. A joyful conversation with a supportive friend is a massive deposit. Now think about your interactions with the toxic individual in your life. An encounter with them is not a normal transaction. It is a high-interest, predatory loan you never agreed to. A 5-minute conversation filled with passive aggression and veiled criticism can cost you 50 units of your energy. A full-blown gaslighting argument can wipe out your entire account for the day, leaving you in an energy deficit that can take days to recover from.
These people are energy vampires. They are spiritually and emotionally empty, and they seek to fill their own void by draining the vitality of those around them. They feed on your reactions, your attention, and your emotional turmoil. The Grandmaster's endgame strategy is, first and foremost, a strategy of impeccable energy management. You must become a ruthless protector of your account. You must see your energy as more precious than gold, because it is the very currency of your life. It is what you use to pursue your goals, to love your family, to enjoy your hobbies, and to simply exist in a state of well-being. To allow an energy vampire to drain it is the ultimate act of self-betrayal. So, how do you protect it? You start by doing a conscious energy audit. After every significant interaction you have, check in with yourself. Ask the simple question, do I feel more energized or more drained after that? Start noticing which people, which situations, and which conversations are major withdrawals. Knowledge is power. Once you have this data, you can begin to make strategic choices. This might mean proactively limiting your exposure to known energy vampires. It might mean that a 2-hour family dinner is no longer feasible, but a 30-minute coffee in a neutral, public place is manageable. It means learning to use your most powerful 2-letter word, no. No is a complete sentence. No, I am not available to talk on the phone right now. No, I won't be able to make it to that event. You do not need to justify, argue, defend, or explain your no. Every word of a Jade response, justify, argue, defend, explain, is a withdrawal from your energy account. A simple no preserves your capital. This mindset shift is profound. When you see interactions through the lens of energy transactions, you stop asking what is the polite thing to do and start asking what is the wisest investment of my life force. The second part of the endgame strategy is to use the knowledge you've gained to move from being reactive to being predictive. It is the practice of anticipating the patterns. You are no longer an amateur. You have studied their playbook. You know the narcissistic king needs admiration. You know the critical rook looks for flaws. You know the gaslighting bishop will deny reality. This knowledge is not just for in-the-moment analysis, it is for preemptive strategic planning. You can now use your prefrontal cortex, your inner grandmaster, to run simulations before you ever step onto the board. Let's say you have a mandatory family gathering coming up. You know your mother-in-law, a classic martyr pawn, will be there. You know that at some point she will find you alone in the kitchen and begin her usual routine of sighs and passive-aggressive comments designed to make you feel guilty about not calling her enough. The old you would have walked into that gathering with a sense of dread, waiting for the inevitable ambush. You would have been on edge, and when the attack came, you'd be caught off guard and immediately hijacked by your amygdala. The new you, the Grand Master, prepares. Days before the event, you sit down for 5 minutes and you run a mental simulation. You visualize the scene. You see the kitchen. You see her walk in. You hear her predictable opening line. "Oh, it's so lovely to see you. I just wish we could do this more often." In your mind, you feel the familiar tug of guilt. You observe it like the scientist at the volcano. And then you rehearse your move. You practice your gray rock response. You hear her words, and you calmly visualize yourself turning from the counter, making brief eye contact, and saying in a placid, boring tone, "It's nice to see you too." And then you immediately pivot. "Have you tried this dip? It's amazing." You run this simulation 2 or 3 times. What you are doing is a form of neuroscientific desensitization. You are exposing yourself to the stimulus in a controlled, safe environment. You are creating and strengthening the new neural pathway, from her trigger to your calm response, before the real-life event ever happens. When the day of the gathering arrives, you are no longer walking into an ambush. You are walking into a scene you have already rehearsed. When she delivers her line, your brain isn't shocked. It doesn't perceive it as a threat. It recognizes it as the predicted data point from your simulation, and it activates the new, well-practiced response. You have successfully preempted the amygdala hijack. You have played the move you planned, not the reaction she expected. This is the difference between being a pawn and being a player. Finally, we come to the most subtle and sophisticated move in the Grandmaster's arsenal. It is a technique that feels counterintuitive, that feels like losing, but is in fact the ultimate expression of your power. This is the art of the strategic concession. A toxic person is often desperate for a sense of control and a feeling of victory. Their fragile egos require constant validation, and one way they get it is by winning arguments, no matter how trivial. They thrive on the fight. They live for the debate. The content of the argument is often irrelevant. It's the dynamic of conflict itself that they crave. You, on the other hand, are now guided by a new principle: the preservation of your energy. Your goal is not to win the argument. Your goal is to win your peace. And sometimes the smartest, most efficient way to achieve your goal is to let them win theirs. A strategic concession is the conscious choice to let a toxic person win a meaningless point in order to gracefully exit the conversation and preserve your energy. It is not surrender, it is a tactical retreat. Let's say you are arguing about a trivial fact. They insist that a certain movie came out in 1998, and you know for a fact it came out in 1999. The old you would have pulled out your phone to prove them wrong. You would have entered a 10-minute debate, presenting evidence, feeling frustrated by their refusal to accept a simple fact. You might have won the argument, but at what cost? You would have spent 15 units of your precious energy on a completely pointless battle, and you would have given them exactly what they wanted: the drama of the fight. The Grandmaster looks at the board and assesses the stakes. Is winning this point essential to my well-being? Is it a matter of safety or integrity? Or is it a trivial ego battle? 99% of the time, it's the latter. And so, the Grandmaster makes the strategic concession. They say, you know what, I think you might be right about that. Or, that's an interesting point, I hadn't thought of it that way. Or, simply, okay. To the toxic person, they have won. They feel a small surge of superiority. They have been validated. But what have you done? You have, with a few simple words, completely de-escalated the situation. You have starved them of the conflict they were trying to create. You have saved yourself the 15 units of energy that the pointless debate would have cost you. And you have walked away with the ultimate prize, your own serene, unruffled peace. You let them win the battle for a meaningless hill so you could win the war for your own sanity. That is the end game. It's a life lived proactively, not reactively. It's a life where you are the fierce, conscious guardian of your own energy. A life where you anticipate the games and prepare your moves in advance. A life where you are so grounded in your own purpose that you have the wisdom and the strength to concede the trivial battles, because you are focused on the only victory that truly matters. You have now moved beyond the board. You are no longer just a player in their game. You are the architect of your own. You have achieved a level of mastery. But what does life look like from this new vantage point? What is the world like after the game is over? That is the final, beautiful destination we will explore. The game is over. What now? The board has been cleared. The pieces have been put away. The frantic, desperate struggle for survival on that black and white battlefield is a memory. You have played the final move, not a move of aggression, but a move of profound, unshakable peace.
You have achieved the silent checkmate. And in the quiet that follows, a new landscape emerges. A world not defined by conflict, but by clarity. A life not dictated by the moves of others, but designed by the intentions of its sole, sovereign ruler, you. For so long, you have lived in a state of high alert. Your nervous system was a tightly coiled spring, always braced for the next critical comment, the next guilt trip, the next wave of chaos. Your mind was a noisy, crowded room, filled with the echoes of their accusations and the frantic whispers of your own self-doubt. Peace, when it came, was just a brief, temporary ceasefire before the next battle. I want you to take a moment and feel what is happening in its place. Can you feel it? It is a new kind of silence. Not the empty, anxious silence you felt after a difficult encounter, but a deep, resonant silence. A silence that is full of potential. A silence that is in fact the sound of your own mind finally at rest.
This is the Grand Master's peace. It is the calm that settles in your bones when you no longer fear the opinions of others because you have become the ultimate arbiter of your own worth. It is the clarity that dawns when you stop trying to make sense of their nonsense and instead trust the simple, solid truth of your own perception. It is waking up in the morning and feeling your energy as a full, vibrant wellspring within you, knowing with absolute certainty that you will not allow it to be siphoned away by pointless drama. It is looking at your phone when it buzzes with a message from them and feeling not a jolt of anxiety, but a calm, neutral sense of choice. You are no longer a puppet whose strings are being pulled. You are the one who decides if, when, and how you will engage. The power is entirely yours. This peace is not a passive state. It is an active, vibrant force. It is the fertile ground from which every other good thing in your life can now grow. And the most beautiful part of this internal mastery is that it does not stay contained within you. It creates a ripple effect, touching every single area of your life, transforming your world from the inside out. Think about your health. The chronic stress, the constant drip of cortisol that came from walking on eggshells has been slowly poisoning your body for years. It weakened your immune system, disrupted your sleep, and tied your stomach in knots. As you replace that cortisol with the calm of the observer self, your body can finally begin to heal. You will sleep more deeply, your digestion will improve. You will find you have more physical energy, more vitality, because your body is no longer wasting its resources fighting invisible wars. Think about your work. How much of your focus and creativity has been stolen by the mental replays of toxic interactions? How many great ideas have been smothered by the internalized voice of the critic telling you that you weren't good enough? With your mind clear of that static, your focus becomes laser sharp. You become more present, more innovative, more decisive. You can take on challenges with a newfound resilience because the fear of criticism from others has been replaced by the quiet confidence of your own internal counsel. You become a better leader, a more reliable colleague, and a more effective creator, because all the energy you once spent on defense, you now invest in growth. And most profoundly, think about your healthy relationships. Think about the people in your life who genuinely love and support you. How much have they gotten of the real you? How often have they received the exhausted, drained, distracted leftovers after you've been through the ringer? When you are no longer mired in toxic dynamics, you show up for the people who matter with a level of presence and joy that may have been impossible before. You have the emotional bandwidth to truly listen. You have the capacity to celebrate their wins without your own insecurities getting in the way. You can be a source of strength and calm for them because you have cultivated it within yourself. Your empathy, once a vulnerability for manipulators to exploit, is now a pure, powerful gift you can offer freely to those who deserve it. You become a better partner, a more patient parent, a more authentic friend. You stop just surviving your relationships and start truly savoring them.
This journey was never just about learning to cope with one difficult person. It was about upgrading your entire operating system. It was about reclaiming the whole of your life. Now, we must be realistic. Mastering mental chess does not magically remove every toxic person from the planet or even from your life. You may still have to interact with that coworker. You may still have to see that family member at holidays. The world will continue to be filled with challenging personalities. But the difference, the monumental, life-altering difference, is that they no longer have power over your internal state. You see their moves, you recognize their patterns, and you feel a sense of detached compassion. You see them not as monsters, but as deeply wounded people, trapped in their own painful games, endlessly seeking validation they will never find. You may feel a touch of sadness for them, but you no longer feel responsible for them. Their chaos is their weather system, and you are living in a different climate now. You can observe their storm from the window of your strong, peaceful home, but you have no intention of running outside to stand in their rain. Their presence in your life is now merely a circumstance you manage, not a crisis that defines you. Their drama is a noise in the distance, and you are no longer tuned to that frequency. You have come a long way, from the confused, exhausted pawn reacting to every move, to the calm, strategic grandmaster who sees the entire board with clarity and purpose. You have learned that the greatest battles are not fought with loud words, but with a quiet mind. You have learned that the most powerful defense is not a high wall, but a deep sense of self. You have learned that true victory is not about dominating another, but about mastering yourself. And now, as we close, I want to bring you back to that central metaphor and reframe it one last time. In the beginning, you saw yourself as a piece on the board, moved and manipulated by a more powerful player. Then, through this work, you learned to become the player, the strategic mind directing the pieces with conscious intent. But the final stage of this evolution, the place where you will now live, is the realization that you are more than just the player. You are the board itself, the stable, unchanging foundation upon which the entire game is played. You are the 64 squares of light and shadow, holding all the chaos and drama, yet remaining whole and undisturbed beneath it all. You are all the pieces, the courage of the king, the wisdom of the bishop, the straightforward power of the rook. Every quality, every strength, every strategy resides within you, ready to be deployed not in battle against another, but in the beautiful, creative game of designing your own life. And yes, you are still the player, the conscious, observing awareness that directs all of this with love, wisdom, and an unshakable commitment to your own peace. You are the board, the pieces, and the player. You are the entire game. And you can never be defeated in a game where you, yourself, are the prize. Carry this knowing with you. Let it be the affirmation that guides you from this day forward. When you feel the old programming start to pull at you, when you hear the faint echo of a critical voice, place a hand on your heart, take a single deep breath, and remind yourself of this ultimate truth. My peace is my power. I am the creator of my internal state. The game has changed because I have changed, and I am